Hi there, Shaliza. I'm here to see you one last time to give you my reflection on this process. So, the first thing that I wanted to talk about was the mathematics learned. And so, for us, my collaborative group, we decided on patterning in algebra, which our actual concept was equality and equivalence. So, we decided to pick from the expectations and the overall and the specific expectations for each grade up to grade 5. So, grade 1 all the way up to grade 5. We focused on the algebra component or the algebra strand for this concept. So in order for us to start our collaborative group, we had to pick ages. And a lot of people were very comfortable in the ages that they did in their placement last year because they did something similar to this. Unfortunately, we had a lot of people who were in primary placements, so grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and we had nobody in our group who was in a grade 4 or 5. So we had kind of a couple tips in the beginning just to think about what we wanted to do. However, the collaboration process was actually quite great because a couple of us just decided to expand our knowledge and do grades that we're not necessarily comfortable with, which involved me as well. Doing a grade 5, I was able to learn quite a lot about how the expectations actually go throughout the years of study. So, of course, I know the grade 1 because my placement was in a grade 1 placement last year, a grade 1 class. So I know the algebra expectations, and it was really fun to look through the curriculum document and look through the different things that you gave us to see how it actually moves because it's really cool. You start off with the conservation of numbers, and then you give numbers meaning, and then you find equivalencies and equalities through those numbers, and then when you go up to grade 5 and grade 6, you're including variables. And that's really cool, being able to see the progression of the expectations and the numeracy and the algebra components that build up, which is really great to know if you're teaching, for example, a grade 5 student who only has grade 3 or grade 4 mathematical knowledge or has a grade 6 mathematical knowledge. I feel like this process of looking at the document is very important to be able to understand your students as different peoples and different learners. So yeah, the mathematics learned was um, a lot of very fun things. We all decided to do our fluency tasks very fun. Our technology task was very fun. It was very fun for us to do. So for our students, of course, we want to make it more exciting, more fun for them so that it increases the knowledge and the repetition that they do for mathematics in our strand and hopefully in other strands as well and connecting strands. So for our collaboration, we all decided on a grade and we talked slightly about quite a bit actually, about our specific expectations. So there were some specific expectations that wanted to be targeted for certain grades that did not necessarily match up exactly for the older grades. There was also quite a bit of difference between grade 3 and grade 4. We found that some of the expectations that were wanting to be chose to focus on did not have a direct strand into grade 5 and grade 6. So we chose the ones that we did listed below, listed in our concept lesson and in our long-term map. So that you could actually see the increase of equality and equivalence through this specific strand and how it is incredibly relevant to teaching math. So working in a collaboration is very necessary, I think, as a teacher, because no longer are you putting all the stress on you to figure out what your students know and what they should know and planning these lessons. Instead, you're doing it as a team. So the teachers before you and after you are ensuring that your students succeed in their different ways of learning by allowing them to plan lessons that specifically correlate to other lessons and increase knowledge so that the students are at where they should be when they get to the next grade. And of course, when you don't, you note this for the next teacher in maybe a report card or something of the sort. But collaboration is a really big part. I had a lot of fun doing the different tasks with each other because I found once I had my task, it was easier to find the task below and potential tasks for above. So I had the highest grade, I had grade 5. So it was really fun for me after I found my grade 5 test to go and help grade 4 or grade 1 because I could see where that knowledge was coming from. So the collaboration I find is very essential, especially for 21st century teaching, because all your students are different. And as teachers, you need to be on the same page about teaching and allowing your students to learn as much as possible throughout their years of schooling. So the collaboration process was great. We were able to sit down, for example, during our picking expectations, we were able to sit down and see each other's point of view, hear different arguments about things. When we did our meetings about our concept lessons, all of our concept lessons aligned at some point. In our lessons, we touched on previous and next knowledge for our students that are not necessarily in the grade level. We were able to talk about each other's lessons when we did the presentation so that other people could get a sense of where it's going. So that collaboration was great. When we did our technology-based tasks, we found a lot of really nice websites that we could use as a school board or as a school in general. Having our students have one account with something and continuing on with that account through the rest of their school career, or at least with us, seemed really great. We all chose different websites to show how that could increase and different things that you could use as a teacher for your students just to give that really holistic point of view for you guys. But the collaboration I found was really useful, especially for teachers of lower or higher grades to actually sit down and talk about the things that you want your students to learn is great because now you're setting expectations on each other as teachers and on your students and mathematical knowledge, which creates that spiraling math, right? So by doing this collaboration part, you're really just giving more and your all to your students, which is perfect. So moving on to the presentation. Specifically about my presentation, I felt that there was a lot of saying, which is okay for teacher candidates, but my task was very student driven, so it was for students who needed the repetition, and not necessarily for teacher candidates. So it might have seemed boring for the teacher candidates. However, for the students, I got a lot of really good feedback from my colleagues about how the students would react to it. So themed learning is my really big thing. I love themed learning. I love giving the students something that reminds them of learning something because that gives them more of a chance to remember it when they're not in my class. When they have something that they can hold on to for the rest of their life, they learn the lesson a little bit better, I think. So by teaching them financial literacy coming in with mathematical processing is wonderful. I think financial literacy is really needed, especially in grade 5 and up, maybe even grade 4 and up, when they start getting allowances and they start being part of society a little bit more. So you're creating the active citizen, right? You're creating somebody who understands financial situations. And for my presentation, I really wanted to put out that there were multiple ways that you could teach this lesson, and teach changing variables, like variables as a changing concept, and variables as a new concept for them. So by doing a themed lesson, you're allowing your students to jump right into it and be the math, right? You're allowing them to have fun with the math and have fun with the learning, and that in turn allows them to understand more. So my presentation was really based on having fun in math and doing things that allow students to want to do the math. So that's my really big thing. I loved math in elementary school, and then when it came to high school and it wasn't fun anymore, I really didn't like it. So continuing that fun learning, like learning is so much fun. We are lifelong learners, and so by teaching them that learning is fun, we're creating a lifelong learner as well. Finally, lastly, student learning. I did touch on it a little bit, but basically I wanted my students to learn not necessarily the expectations, but the concept itself, that numbers put in a certain pattern are or sometimes are equal, and you can represent an equation, an algebraic equation, or just numbers in general, to understand that there is equality and equivalence in numbers. So teaching this concept was very essential to students, understanding that numbers have a value and they have meaning. So by putting a 3F for French fries and that equals a certain amount, you're teaching them that the F is equivalent to a certain a dollar amount or number amount, and you're teaching them the meaning behind that they can applicate into their real life situations. Going back to grade 1, you're obviously teaching the conservation of numbers. So if you have this much is 7, but you spread it out, it's still 7, just in a wider area. Okay, so these basic concepts are needed for all of the students' lives. So student learning really is essential concepts in a fun way. So by allowing them to have this whole unit with their procedural fluency, with their technology test, with the concept lesson, with the diagnostic, with the performance risk task, you're allowing to see all of the certain types of mathematics that they need in that certain concept. In R equality and equivalence, all of your things that you put together create learning for them. So you're building your unit plan based on these things, and you're using your concept plan to base something off of that. You're creating student knowledge of your concept, which is equality and equivalence, to continue their knowledge. So by using these, you're doing it in a fun way, a repetitive way, and you're allowing them to understand the mathematics in a more holistic way. So by creating this student learning, you're allowing them to take it with them wherever they go. And that was my goal for this. So that was my reflection. It was quite long. I apologize. That's why I wanted to talk about it. I feel like I could go more in depth with it. Thank you so much for all of your teaching this year. I really appreciate it. It's going to help so much in my next 2 placements. I wish you so well. Have a great year. Bye.